Right now, 134 countries are building something that didn't exist 10 years ago. A kind of money that can be switched off for one person, by one authority, in 1 second. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's public record. And 2,000 years ago, a book most people own but never finish reading said this exact thing would happen, right before the end begins. Not after armies, not after some disaster, before all of it. This is happening in the order Jesus said it would, and most people watching this don't know they're already inside step 1. Follow that money trail for 1 second, then come back, because there's something bigger underneath it. Before any system can control what you buy or sell, something else has to happen first. Something so quiet, most people never notice it at all. Jesus stood on a hillside with his closest friends. They asked him straight out, "Tell us, when does this end? What's the sign?" And his very first word back wasn't about war. It wasn't about a mark. It wasn't even about the beast system everyone talks about today. His first word was a warning. Watch out. Don't let anyone fool you. Read that again. Out of everything he could have said first, he chose that. Not a disaster. A lie. Here's why that matters more than people realize. A system that controls an entire planet doesn't start with tanks. It doesn't start with a takeover. It starts with an idea, planted quietly, repeated often enough that it stops sounding strange. Think about how fast normal changes. Something that would have shocked your grandparents is dinner conversation now. Nobody voted on that shift. Nobody announced it. It just happened. One small step at a time, until the ground underneath everyone had moved. That's not an accident. That's the method. A world that still believes in truth is hard to rule. People who trust their own eyes ask questions. People who know right from wrong resist being told otherwise. So before any single voice can stand up and have the whole earth follow him, something has to break first. Not weapons. Not money. Belief itself. Truth has to start feeling optional. Up has to start feeling like it could be down, depending on who's talking. And once enough people stop trusting what's true, one voice can walk in, and everyone follows, because nobody's sure what they're supposed to be following anymore. That's step 1. Quiet, slow, almost impossible to point to on any single day. But deception by itself doesn't flip the switch. It softens the ground. It doesn't start the system. There's a second moment, and this one isn't slow at all. The Apostle Paul, writing to a small, terrified church almost 2,000 years ago, said something has to happen before the real system can even begin. Something is holding it back right now. And the moment that something is gone, everything locks into place at once. Not a drift, a door slamming shut. He named the place he sent that warning. It still exists today. And buried inside that letter is one sentence most people read past without realizing what it's actually telling them. That letter went to a real city. It still stands today. A port town, busy, ordinary, the kind of place nobody expects prophecy to come from. A small church there was scared. They thought they'd missed the end already. So Paul wrote back to calm them down. And buried in that letter is one sentence almost nobody talks about. He said the Antichrist can't show up yet. Something is in the way. Something is holding him back. Right now, today, this very hour. Read the word he used. Old English. It means the opposite of what it sounds like. It means to restrain, to hold back. There is something stopping the worst of this world from breaking loose. And one day, Paul says, that something gets taken out of the way. The second it happens, everything locks into place. Picture a dam. Behind it, everything you're afraid of. In front of it, a valley full of people who have no idea what's holding the water back. The only reason the flood hasn't come is that the dam is still standing. So here's the real question. Who is the dam? Whatever it is, has to be strong enough to hold back evil on a planet-wide scale, present everywhere, all at once. There's only one thing in the whole Bible that fits that description: the Spirit of God. And where does he live? Inside the people who follow Jesus. Inside the church. Follow that all the way down. The dam holds back the flood. The dam is the Spirit. The Spirit lives inside believers, which means the day the dam moves, the believers move with it. That's not a small detail. That's the whole hinge the rest of this list swings on. Because if the restrainer leaving means the church leaving, then somewhere in this list is a moment where an entire group of people simply isn't here anymore. No warning shot. No countdown clock on a screen. Gone, between one heartbeat and the next. And the strange part is, some of the earliest Christians who ever lived seem to already believe exactly that. Not in a church building. Underground, in the dark, where they were being hunted for what they believed. They left something behind down there, carved into stone. A single word, written by hands that were probably shaking. Go down into those tunnels, and you'll find graves, row after row, carved into soft rock, by people who buried their own dead in secret because they were being hunted above ground, and scratched into that rock, over and over, is one word. Not a cry for help, not a prayer for rescue, a promise. The Lord is coming. People who had every reason to feel forgotten wrote that word anyway, in the dark, while they were being killed for their faith. That's not decoration. That's the most confident thing a person can write. Paul described what they were waiting for in plain terms. A shout. A voice like an archangel. A trumpet blast loud enough to raise the dead. And in that exact order, something happens that no one alive has ever seen. The people who already died in the faith get up first. Then, right after, everyone still alive who believes gets caught up to join them. Not slowly, not over years, in a moment, faster than you can blink. One writer described it as quicker than the human eye can register a change at all. Think about the size of that for a second. Every grave, in every country, on every continent, at the exact same instant. And then the living, joining them in the sky. Here's what should stop you. This isn't a metaphor for feeling better about death. It's described as a physical event, with an order, with sound, with a location in the sky where people meet. And it happens without warning. No lead-up, no final sign that says, today's the day. One moment the world looks completely normal. The next, it doesn't. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the restrainer leaves that fast, what does the world look like the day after? Because the moment the dam actually breaks, the flood doesn't trickle in slowly either. It happens on a specific stage, one that's existed for thousands of years, sitting in the middle of the most fought-over piece of land on the planet. That stage is being built right now, piece by piece, and most people walking past it every day have no idea what they're looking at. There's a walled platform in the middle of Jerusalem's old city. People fight over this ground more than almost any other spot on Earth. Right now, a golden dome sits where two ancient temples used to stand. This exact ground is where the next part of the story is supposed to happen. Here's why that matters. Less than a mile from that platform, in a workshop tucked into the Jewish quarter, people have spent years quietly building the objects a working temple would need. A golden altar, a menorah, priestly garments with 12 stones set into a breastplate, an altar built specifically so it can be moved fast, the moment it's needed. None of that makes headlines. It doesn't need to. It just needs to exist, sitting ready, waiting for a door that's been locked for almost 2,000 years to open. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This has already happened once before, on this same ground. Over 2,000 years ago, a foreign king marched an army onto that platform, stopped the daily worship happening there, and set up an altar to a different god in the holiest room in the building. Jewish historians called it the ultimate act of contempt. People at the time called it the desecration that could never be undone. Centuries later, a different man stood across the valley, pointed at that same platform, and told his followers it would happen again. Not a repeat of the old story, the real one, final. Now watch what the system reaches for first once it's in place. Not weapons, not soldiers, your wallet. An old prophecy describes a system where nobody can buy or sell anything at all unless they carry a specific mark. For most of history, that sounded impossible. How do you control every single transaction, everywhere, for everyone? Today, it doesn't sound impossible. It sounds like software. Right now, well over 100 countries are building digital versions of their own currency. Money that only exists as data. Money that can be switched on or off, for one person, by one authority, instantly. One country's digital currency has already processed trillions of dollars in transactions. Trillions. Not as a test, as a working system. Here's the honest part, and it matters. This isn't guaranteed to end the way people fear. At least one major country has already passed a law banning its own central bank from creating a currency like this. The plumbing is being laid. That doesn't mean the water's already running. But think about what's actually changed in one lifetime. The idea of a system that can shut off a single person's ability to buy groceries used to belong entirely to fiction. Now it belongs to infrastructure meetings and pilot programs. Picture something simple. A grocery cart, full, bread, milk, everything a family needs for the week. You get to the register, and the machine simply won't let the transaction go through. Not once. Every time, from then on. Now picture hundreds of thousands of people who see exactly what that machine wants from them, understand precisely what it means, and refuse anyway. Why would anyone choose that? Because by then, they'd have already seen something else happen first. They'd have watched people vanish without warning. And once you've seen that, refusing a machine stops feeling like the hard choice. Even in that moment, the story doesn't say everyone loses hope. It describes a specific number of people sealed for protection, and messengers who can't be silenced no matter what's done to them. So here's where this leaves us. Deception first. A restrainer removed. A disappearance. A stage built on a real, physical, fought-over piece of land. A financial system already being wired into place. But none of that answers the biggest question in the entire story. How does he actually come back? Not the system he's up against. Him. There are 3 specific words used to answer that question. Words picked on purpose. Words that were never once used to describe the first time he showed up. The first word means simply arrival. But that's too thin a translation, because of how the word got used back then. When a king visited a city in the ancient world, officials didn't call it a visit. They called it this exact word. It carried weight, preparation, the sense that ordinary life was about to be interrupted by someone whose presence changes everything around him. The same word was also used for an invading army landing on a shore. Before the landing, quiet. After it, everything different. No blurry line between the two. A hard break in history, all at once. That's the freight the first word carries. Not a mood settling in slowly. An event, with a moment, splitting time cleanly in two. But an arrival, by itself, can still happen quietly. A king can slip in through a side door before the crowd even notices. Which is exactly why there's a second word. The second word means to appear. To step out where everyone can see you. Picture a crowd packed into a public square. Every face turned up toward a closed set of doors on a high balcony. Everyone knows those doors are about to open. The tension is almost unbearable. Then they do open. And the person everyone's been straining to see steps into full view. And the sound that goes up is like a wall of noise hitting you at once. That's the second word. Not private. Not something you hear about secondhand. Every eye on the planet, looking at the same thing at the same time. The first time, the glory stayed hidden behind an ordinary face, in an ordinary town. The doors never opened. This time, they do. But even that isn't the deepest word. Being seen is still, in a strange way, something that happens outside of you. You could witness the whole event and still walk away from it exactly as you arrived, the way you walk away from fireworks. The third word doesn't let that happen. It means unveiling, to pull the covering off something and show it exactly as it really is. Not arriving somewhere, not stepping onto a balcony, being seen for what you actually are, underneath everything. Here's the part almost nobody expects. That same unveiling doesn't stop at him. The same light that strips the covering off his identity falls on everyone standing in it too, which means this was never only a story about him arriving. And once you see that, you start noticing something else. There were signs he gave, specifically, so people would know when to start watching closely. He didn't leave people guessing completely. He gave a short list of signs and told his closest followers to watch for them directly. The first signal shows up in the headlines: wars, disasters, widespread hunger. But here's the detail people skip past. He didn't call these the start of an ending. He called them the start of a birth. Painful, but the pain of something being born, not something dying. That distinction changes everything about how a person is supposed to react to bad news. Watching the same headlines as everyone else, and reading them completely differently. But there's a danger riding right alongside this first sign. When the world shakes hard enough, frightened people go looking for a strong leader to fix it. That's the exact opening a false savior needs. The second signal shows up somewhere else entirely, inside the church itself. Pressure on believers, spreading in more places, not fewer. Under that pressure, some people's commitment goes cold, while others get sharper, clearer, more certain than ever. The pressure doesn't create belief. It reveals who actually had it in the first place. The danger riding alongside this one is a false voice, offering comfort when comfort isn't the honest answer. A voice saying everything's fine when it isn't. The third signal happens on that same platform in Jerusalem. A desecration, like the one that already happened there once, centuries ago. Except final this time. The instruction tied to that moment is blunt. Leave immediately. Don't stop to gather your things. And to everyone else, watching from a distance, the instruction is the opposite. Trust what you can verify with your own eyes. Not rumors. Not second-hand reports claiming he's already shown up somewhere quietly. That kind of claim gets ruled out completely, on purpose, ahead of time. The fourth signal is the one that can't be faked, argued with, or mistaken for anything else, because it isn't happening on Earth at all. It's in the sky. The description is simple and total. The sun goes dark. The moon goes dark. Every other source of light in the sky switches off, one after another, until there's nothing left but total black. And then, one single flash of light, moving from one horizon to the other, faster than anything natural could travel. By the time that happens, there's no room left to be fooled by anything. It's over too quickly for deception to work anymore. Now here's the part everyone actually wants answered. When? History is full of confident people who picked a date. A farmer in New England named a specific year in the 1800s and built an entire following around it. The year came and went. Nothing happened. Out of that failure, a whole new religious movement grew anyway. Someone else fixed on a different year a few decades later. Same result. A different movement grew out of that failure too. Even respected reformers picked years, centuries apart from each other, always conveniently after they themselves would already be dead. Nobody wants to be alive to explain why their date didn't work. There's a line that should settle the entire question permanently. The one line where Jesus himself says, "No one knows that day. Not the angels, not even the Son, in that moment. Only the Father." If that's true, then anyone selling you a specific year is selling you something they can't actually back up. But here's a detail worth sitting with anyway. There's a pattern to how certain major events already lined up with specific yearly festivals, centuries apart, without anyone forcing the timing. Some people notice that pattern and wonder, quietly, whether the season, not the year, might be worth watching. Autumn. Not a date, a window. That's speculation, and it should be treated as speculation, not certainty. What isn't speculation is simpler and harder to avoid. If any part of this list is true, the question was never really about when it happens. It was always about whether you'd already decided where you stand before it did. There's one detail in that list nobody's mentioned yet. It's the one detail that changes how everything before it should actually feel. The system, the mark, the desecration, the darkened sky. None of it lasts forever. It runs for a fixed, specific length of time, not centuries, months. Compare that to how long the dam has already been holding. Thousands of years of patience, against a system that burns out in less time than it takes to finish a college degree. That ratio isn't an accident. Someone set that timer before the dam was ever built, which means the real question was never whether the flood is coming. Every sign on this list says it already started moving. The real question is what you do in the time before the sound of that trumpet actually reaches you, because the door is still open right now, while you're hearing this. And nobody, not even the one who wrote the ending, has told anyone watching this exactly how much time is left on that clock.